Hello and welcome to College Kickoff 25. This is the University of Texas edition. I'm Roger Wallace along with lifetime Longhorn Fozzy Whittaker. We're in Austin, Texas. Of course, the Texas Longhorns #1 in both the AP poll and the coaches poll. And Fozzy, it's hard to imagine the program that has had so much success. It's never happened before. We know about this program with expectations. Never been higher, obviously, with those #1 rankings.
Yeah, Steve Sarkisian obviously has done a great job since he stepped foot on campus here at the University of Texas. But to your point, this has never been charted territory that Texas has waded through preseason. So that means emotions going to be a little bit higher. We've seen fans already active and alert about what this upcoming season can be. And then obviously the hype around what Arch Manning can be for the University of Texas squad. I think everything bodes well for what Texas has coming into this season, and obviously the rankings support what Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns are going into 2025.
Yeah, it's all about obviously the 12-team playoff. The rankings are for us to talk about and kind of that bridge to the regular season, and they'll shuffle around. But it's funny because when those official college football playoff rankings start coming out, they're usually not far off from the polls, even though people say the polls don't matter. But let's look at the big picture with this Texas football program. 2 straight Final Fours. Obviously, last year they had to win a couple of games to get to the Final Four. The disappointing loss to Ohio State. Oh, by the way, they open at Ohio State on August 30th. But kind of what is your 30,000-foot view of this program and this team as much as we know about it right now?
You know, a week ago, I actually thought about this moment and kind of where the state of the program is. If you look at the 4 years prior to this upcoming season that Steve Sarkisian has been here, I think the biggest thing that steps off of the page for me is the development process. Texas has always recruited at elite levels, whether it was Mack Brown, whether it was Charlie Strong, whether it's Tom Herman and Steve Sarkisian. The difference between where Texas is now versus where we saw throughout the 2010s and the late 2010s going into the early 2020s is the development of those 5, 4, and 3-star athletes. We've seen record number of players get drafted in multiple years, back-to-back years over the past 2 seasons. I think that's where you look at that 30,000-foot view. The program is in a great spot because of the developmental process that Steve Sarkisian and the rest of his staff has been able to implement to get this team and this program where it needs to be.
Yeah, it seems like it's to the point where you talk about who they lost, and we did it a few years ago. We did it last year, and we'll do it this year. But then you have to remember that that's what building a program means. So maybe some guys aren't household names, like a Trevor Gooseby, but they were just as highly recruited. And if they're developed, they're going to step right in. That's how programs don't miss a beat, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's what we've seen from Alabama over the past decade. That's what we've seen from Georgia most recently over the past few years. Steve Sarkisian's right in line. And a perfect example that I give for us as Texas fans is looking at the defensive line. Just 2 seasons ago, we lost Keandre Colburn, we lost Moro Ojomoth, 2 of the guys that were staples within the program. And everybody was like, what is the replacement going to look like? How will we ever be as strong and as dominant as 2 NFL guys? Oh, it's just Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat come in, a first-rounder and a second-rounder. And those guys obviously performed admirably. The defense took another step up. And everybody's looking like, oh, how do we replace first-round and second-round talent? And how will the defense not take a hit statistically overall? Well, you just bring in 2 more guys, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, who had been with the program. But that development is what I mentioned. That's 3 straight years of product and success in the interior defensive line. Questions surrounding that portion of the defense now. Well, the track record shows Coach Pete Kwiatkowski, as well as Steve Sarkisian, Bo Davis, those are the guys that's going to have them feeling really good and ready to go. And then obviously you bring in Coach Baker. After Bo Davis had those guys that went into the NFL, it's always NFL-oriented mindset that's going to continue to transcend the interior defensive line and hopefully the rest of the positions as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about that defense. I want to flip to offense, and we've got to be honest. The most talked about player in college football is a young man with 2 starts. He's threw 90 passes last year. He didn't have to throw a pass on the road, but his last name is Manning, and he comes in with so much talent. And it seems, Fozzy, that he's handled this about as well, or probably most would say better, than you could ever imagine when he committed to Texas, then he came to Texas and waited his turn behind Quinn Ewers?
Well, I would say part of that has to do with the household name of the Manning kind of allure that he brings to the table. The thing that stands out is his maturity level, the way that he goes about his business, right? You talked about his recruitment process. He wasn't like all of these other people that are, I'm committed to Texas one week, I'm committed to Ohio State one week, I'm committed to Tennessee the next week, I'm committed. He didn't take visits all over the place. He wasn't overly, accessible on social media. He was all about his business. He knew where he wanted to go. He made that decision, shut down recruitment, and then stuck to that. And then ever since he's been on campus, obviously, he's a megastar. He's a celebrity in and of itself. But he still had the wherewithal to know where he fit in with the team. It was Quinn Ewers' team whenever he first stepped foot, and he's learned a ton from Quinn Ewers, and you can hear him talk about that as well. But the way he's matured and kind of manifested himself to take the moment whenever the moment is available for him, I think truly stands out in characteristics of a stellar quarterback for this Texas Longhorn football team.
Yeah, the attention and the hype. I mean, Sporting News had him first team All-American. He is considered a Heisman favorite. And again, his resume is not that big. Let's hear from Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian about his development and kind of how he's handled all of this.
He's always been, if not the hardest worker, one of the hardest workers on the team. He's always been a great teammate. He's always been a guy that's been connected to to the teammates in that locker room. I think now more than ever, going into year 3, the bulk of our team is our first, second, third year players, and all those guys have been his guys. That's who he's been in that locker room with. And so I think just remaining true to himself is what he's done, but yet being a little bit more vocal and having the confidence to do so, and he's earned that right because of the work that he's put in, not only on the football field but in the classroom, and understanding what's important to the program. And there's a great deal of respect for Arch Manning in our locker room. But at the end of the day, they also know they got to do their part. And I think that's the part of being a great team, is that everybody's got a job and a role to do, and he's got responsibility, but so does everybody else to do their part.
We got a young and hungry group, and I think we're really close. With about 95% of the team, I can go out and talk a lot of crap with, and without it being a fight. So it's been fun, and we're a close team, and we want to get over the hump. I'm not really sure how they get these opinions, because I've only played 2 games, but I guess that's nice of them to say, but that doesn't mean anything. Talk is cheap. I got to go prove it.
You can see a lot of his uncles in there with his demeanor. Eli, that dry. Now Peyton's more of all business. But Dad Cooper has been so good about deflecting, saying, hey, he's going to take his lumps. He's going to throw a pick, and I'm going to be sitting in the stands, and suddenly I'm not the backup quarterback's dad. I'm the dad of the guy that just threw the pick. Part of this, Fozzy, the guys up front. That's where the big change comes. You lose 4 starters. You've got DJ Campbell back. What are your thoughts on rebuilding an offensive line and the importance of that unit and the chemistry that goes with it?
Yeah, well, the chemistry is the biggest key word that you mentioned there. You got to have that synchronization by those 5 guys, and it's the most difficult thing to do. But, let's look and behold, we got Kyle Flood, one of the best in the business to be able to do it. Also, Texas just had multiple guys drafted in the NFL, which hadn't happened at the offensive line position in quite some time. So the fact that you have somebody so experienced in Kyle Flood leading this group, you got DJ Campbell, who has the experience to go along with it. Cole Hudson, obviously, he's played here and there. He has a ton of experience as well, just not as many starts underneath his belt. Nato is another guy that's played a ton. We saw Trevor Gooseby obviously get critical playing time whenever he came in for the left tackle and the right tackle position. So being flexible and having that swing tackle type of ability helps you bode very well. Brandon Baker's a little bit more new into the rotation, but the chemistry is where you start filling in that process of how well these guys can gel together, how fast that takes. And at the end of the day, I think Kyle Flood is the perfect person to be able to get them to mesh well and be ready to go for week 1.
Yeah, hit with a big camp injury. Andre Kojo is going to battle for that right tackle job out for the season. All right, let's go to your favorite position, because this is a deep running back room. And what a story, Fozzy, is Trey Wisner. Maybe some kids, after a couple of years where they're making their name on special teams, hey, I'm out of DeSoto, I can go play anywhere. Waits his turn, some attrition happens, and lo and behold, he's a preseason All-American, ran for over 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah, he's the perfect example of stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right? The only returning 1,000-yard rusher in the SEC conference as well, which says something about the type of person and the character that he has. Obviously, the injury to C.J. Baxter just a season ago was a huge blow to the offensive room from our perspective, and we could have obviously utilized C.J. Baxter a season ago, but at the same time, Trey Wisner stepped up, Jaden Blue stepped up, who's now in the NFL. Jared Gibson stepped up in his freshman year. And I think the combination of all four of those guys, including Christian Clark, who's coming off of injury, and C.J. Baxter coming off of injury, I think all four of those guys push each other to become the best versions of themselves in practice. And Trey Wisner is at the top from a leadership perspective as well as from a work ethic and attitude perspective, which will lead the group of running backs to be as successful, if not more successful, than they were a season ago.
You had to deal with injuries in your career. What's going through C.J. Baxter's mind as he comes back, as he goes to practice and gets ready to run out on the field in Columbus?
Yeah, I think first you got to start with the mental aspect, right? Is my knee ready? Am I ready to make the full speed cuts that I was accustomed to doing as a freshman or before I got injured in fall camp a season ago? Is my body ready to handle some of the hits that I'm expecting to take, especially week one against Ohio State, who's ranked as the #2 team in the country? And I think C.J. Baxter, watching him in the spring, watching him in the offseason, and then watching some of the clips even in fall camp, I think he's already surpassed that mental hurdle. That's about 90% of the way. Once you get onto the football field, it's all about ball at that moment. Everything is about making a play, reacting, and then being who you are every single down. And I think that comes with a little bit more of the reps that he's going to get. And I don't see it being a big hurdle for a guy like C.J. Baxter, who's ready and willing to work every single time he steps foot on the football field.
Another big turnover, wide receiver, Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, obviously Gunnar Helmet at tight end. They go out and get a tight end, Jack Endries from Cal. He figures to be a big part of it. Some young receivers, Ryan Wingo, if he's healthy, he's dynamic. DeAndre Moore's kind of waited his turn. What do you see from that group?
Yeah, I'm really excited. There's so much talent. Obviously, Steve Sarkisian, we talked about how well he's recruited. That just goes to show you recruiting doesn't just come from the high school ranks as well, but you're able to bring in a guy like Jack Endries, who's on the Mackey list as the best tight end in the country. He's 600 yards, 50 catches over just a season ago at Cal. I think he proves to be a pivotal part of the success that Steve Sarkisian likes to have, featuring his tight ends in this offense. The young receivers, DJ Moore, Wingo, those guys are going to get their opportunities. Even the addition of Emmett Mosley from Stanford, as well as Parker Livingstone, who's had a phenomenal spring as well as a great fall camp. I think the combination of those kind of 3-4 guys, and then obviously add in injuries at the tight end position from the 5 guys that you see making a huge impact week in and week out for this Texas football team. I think they're going to do a great job, and Arch Manning is going to have to continue that chemistry with those guys if they want to have the success that they expect to have. Back
to Arch for a moment. We've seen his athletic ability until Jaden Blue busted off that run against Clemson in the playoff. He had the longest run from scrimmage, 67 yards. What does his threat do for this offense? Quinn Ewers took too many hits. They kind of took the run game away from him, other than trying to move around to extend plays or get 5 or 6 yards. But what does that threat do for the offense as well? Well, ultimately, whenever you have a guy that's mobile, it really puts pressure on that defense, because not only on third downs, whenever it's third and short or third or mid-range, how do you get a guy that can move as well as Arch Manning, how do you get him to stay contained into the pocket? And how do you get your pass rush to be disciplined to keep him contained in the pocket so that he's forcing the ball out? But, oh, by the way, you got receivers that are extremely talented like Wingo and DeAndre Moore. That might not be the best solution for opposing defenses, but Arch Manning is able to provide that back-breaking play that if it's 3rd and 6 or 4th and 5, like we've seen a guy like Vince Young be able to do, or like Colt McCoy in the Fiesta Bowl, shrugging off a tackle to go score and take the lead in the Fiesta Bowl in 2008. Those are just characteristics that make one quarterback go from good to great. And I expect to see Arch Manning take those steps to, hey, put matters into your own hand. You're one of the best athletes on the field. Go showcase why you're one of the best. And if the play is not there downfield, then make a play with your legs. And that's something that you really can't teach. It's something that you have to have. All right, that's the offense. Winning time is on the other side of the ball, and Texas, one of the best in the nation last year, and they look to build on that this year. We'll talk defense and more when we're back after this. Welcome back to College Kickoff 2025, Texas Longhorn edition. Roger Wallace alongside lifetime Longhorn Fozzy Whittaker. We talked about your side of the ball. Now we move to the offense, and Fozzy, it's no coincidence. You look at the NCAA stats last year, 4 of the top 8 defenses in the country against scoring. They were the Final 4 teams. Texas, Notre Dame, Penn State, national champion Ohio State was number 1. This is where it's all won, and Sark, Pete Kwiatkowski, and that defensive staff, they have built something else on that defensive side.
Yeah, and what I truly love is we talked about developmental piece as a whole from the program perspective, but I think it can probably be emphasized even more on the defensive side of the ball. You see guys like Jahdae Barron that came in, a Thorpe Award winner, first-round draft pick, where he started at his career at Texas and then where he finished at Texas shows you the elevation and the process that it takes to get to that top tier All-American level. And you got guys like Michael Taft, walk on, obviously had to earn his stripes, now getting a chance to be a preseason All-American, have a chance to be All-SEC, and then have the opportunity of why he came back to play football is to hopefully win a national championship for this squad. But it's obviously spearheaded by the guy, Anthony Hill Jr., who's, in my opinion, the best linebacker in college football, alongside with the likes of a guy like Colin Simmons, who is, in my opinion, the best rusher in college football. And I think the combination of having guys like that, along with who Sark brought in from the transfer portal, bodes well for this Texas team to be rated back highly in the top 10 in almost every defensive statistical category like we saw them a year ago.
Yeah, the only one that really matters is points against, but the one that coaches talk about the most is turnovers, because you're keeping the other team from scoring, you're giving the ball back to the offense. Texas, number 2 in the nation, 31 forced turnovers, number 1, 22 interceptions, and Pete Kwiatkowski talked about that with this veteran bunch.
The more experienced you are now, they're more comfortable. They're faster processing what their alignment, what they're supposed to do, and so now they're just more aware. And I think we're at a place now where we practice it all the time. I mean, it's emphasized daily, stripping the ball, tips and overthrows, all that. But I think it's a combination of the experience that you have on the team, and then they just come and bind. They feed off of it. I think that as corny as it is, that turnover sword we got, they get fired up about going over there and slamming the ball on top of that. But it's infectious.
Yeah, it's so hard to plan for turnovers. It's so talked about. But as an offensive guy, you know the value on the other side of it. When the offense loses the ball, it's got to be so deflating. Yeah,
that sudden change is what we always call it on the football field, and everything is predicated in workouts, whether it's summer workouts, spring and winter workouts and conditioning. Sometimes coaches just yell out sudden change, or at least that's what we had with Mad Dog. And whatever you were doing prior to, it didn't matter. Whatever the new sudden change is, that implemented what a turnover was and how fast you got to get ready from an offensive perspective. If we were the ones that turned the ball over, our minds are defeated, right? We're going off to the sideline like, man, we just messed up. We put our defense in a bad spot. But for the defense, it's their moment to shine. They have an opportunity to go, win one back for the offense, and then hopefully the offense can win one back for the defense later on. But takeaways obviously is the emphasis that PK wants to highlight and put into practice, because that's a statistical category that leads to victories on a weekly basis. If you win the turnover category, and Coach Mack Brown used to say turnovers and explosive plays, anything over 15 yards, if you can win both of those, it gives your team almost a 98% chance to win the football game. So that's how critical turnovers are. So if you're able to force 31 takeaways that Texas did a season ago, that puts you set up into having success and gives more opportunities for a guy like Arch Manning, as well as the rest of that cast, to be able to have another opportunity to be the best offense in the country as well.
Yeah, Sark went heavy in the portal with the interior defensive linemen. But on the edge, Fozzy, they've got some good ones. It's got to start with the sophomore Colin Simmons, 9 sacks last year.
Yeah, and 14 TFLs to add on to that. This guy lives on the opposite side of the football. It's a tackle's nightmare. Right? What can you do with a guy that's as explosive as Colin Simmons is, as fast as he is, and then as smart as he is? And the way that PK aligns him in different spots, along with utilizing the rest of what PK has at his disposal, it creates opportunities for Colin Simmons to get those one-on-one matchups that are favorable for him. And that's pretty much almost anybody that goes up against him. I'm really excited to see the next step that he takes, because he is an unreal talent, a guy that can literally take a game over just with his own presence, whether commanding 3 different blockers or double teams every single play. It should open up opportunities for other players to be successful. But Colin Simmons is the engine on that defensive line that will allow the rest of the defense to flourish, as we saw it a season ago.
Yeah, Ethan Burke and Colton Vosick, a couple of kids from Westlake High School in Austin, as well as Michael Taff in that secondary. Talked about Anthony Hill Jr., but you mentioned the loss of Ajay Barron, the loss of an Andrew Makuba, both high NFL picks, so that secondary. But again, Fozzy, you go back to the developmental, because they love Jelani McDonald. They love, obviously, Manny Muhammad's back. They love Jalen Gilbo's a veteran. He's a playmaker. So they're hoping that there's some seamless transition to guys that played, but now are going to be asked to do a little bit more. Absolutely.
Kobe Black, I want to throw into that mix as well, a guy that didn't get a ton of snaps a season ago. As a true freshman, I believe he'll be playing some critical downs whenever the season kicks off, as well as Grayson Littleton. I've been hearing really good conversations about the incoming freshman that has an opportunity to maybe make some plays. Warren Roberson is another guy in that secondary who's been chomping at the bit every single time I see him in practice. So they've learned so much from the guys that departed. Barron and Makuba were cerebral mentalists that knew how to get turnovers. They forced takeaways. It didn't matter where they were on the football field. They knew how to get into those positions. A guy like Gilbo, who I had a chance to speak with, mentioned how valuable that was for him to learn from him. Jelani McDonald, Derek Williams coming back off of injury. I'm excited to see how they continue to stack up, and then having the expertise of a guy like Michael Taff coming back and leading that defensive secondary, I think bodes well for what PK wants to utilize to help make other offenses feel like they don't know what to do in order to try to move the ball against this defense.
They've had great success with keeping continuity, but some coaching changes, and one everyone's talking about, obviously, the return of your old defensive secondary coach, Dwayne Akina. He looks like he's moving around just like he did back in 2008 with you.
Coach Akina is still that guy, high energy and loves football. There's no bad thing that I can say about Coach Akina. The best thing that I can say is, you gotta fight. That's one of his favorite things. You gotta fight. You gotta go get it. And that's the attitude that he's going to continue to bring. He's going to bring that passion and that energy to that secondary. I think they've already benefited from him just from spring ball, as well as in the offseason, seeing and hearing his expertise and why you do certain things the way that you do it. And I'm expecting big things from this secondary with the addition of Coach Akina being back in that room.
Well, quite an opener for the Longhorns. And how about not only the rematch of the Cotton Bowl, but in the coaches poll 1 and 2 and the AP poll 1 and 3. As we take a look at the Longhorn schedule, we'll start with the non-conference, and you go to Columbus. And the big difference in the last few years, they've had those marquee non-conference games on the road, Alabama, Michigan. But that was week 2. Yeah. This is week 1. What a way to start the season.
Absolutely. It's going to be impressive. Obviously, doing it in the shoe is going to be highly packed atmosphere. It's going to be one of the things that you can build a program off of. And I'm excited to see how Steve Sarkisian gets these guys ready to rock and roll. And there won't be any additional speeches that'll be needed to go play against a team like Ohio State that knocked them out of the playoff race a season ago.
There you see 3 straight home games, an off week, and then in October, like we've never seen before, because they will not set foot on their home field in October. Check this out. The reason is Oklahoma is this year a Texas home game, But you got to go to the Swamp. They figure to be vastly improved, especially if DJ Lagway's healthy. You got to go to Kentucky, go to Mississippi State. What a month of October ahead for the Longhorns.
Absolutely, and that's something that you have to prepare for, right? Texas wanted to play against the best in the country. Being able to be in the SEC conference, that kind of solidifies that you'll get to play the best week in and week out, and you get to see some of the most historical venues while you're at it. The Swamp won't be any different, and we know what it is whenever you get into Dallas, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. These guys get their first chance of seeing what it's like having a true road slate in the SEC. They have to bounce back and then be mature to be able to handle what's thrown at them, having no home games physically in October.
One thing your coach was great at, Mac Brown, winning on the road, and Steve Sarkisian's had a great track record. Let's go to the November. They say November to remember. Well, you see the open date after Vandy, and then what a finish. They go to Georgia, and then they get the old rivalry games in Austin, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. Obviously, Georgia, the big thorn in the side last year, they lost to them twice.
Yeah, they did, but at the same time, the key thing about this schedule, I think, is 11-8. It's an open date. So you play Vanderbilt, you get them at home, you don't have to travel. It gives you an opportunity to get your bodies right. And then obviously we know what it is, being able to travel to Athens, going into the Hedges. You're going to have to bring it every single play because we know the mindset that Kirby Smart has and how he'll have that Georgia team absolutely prepared and ready to go. So that bye date gives them that additional opportunity to prepare for it. And then obviously we know what the slate is with Arkansas and Texas A&M being rivalry games. You get them at home. What better way to finish off the football season in 25?
Yeah, we're getting ready to kick it off. We're talking about the end, but that's what we do here. It has been fun to talk Longhorn football here on College Kickoff 2025. For Fozzy Whittaker, I'm Roger Wallace. Thanks for watching.